Welcome to READO Bharat, India's books, your next read. Today we are talking about Indian Country by Shobha Rao, a novel that doesn't try to comfort you. Instead, it asks you to sit with discomfort, to listen closely, and to confront the realities of violence, trauma, and survival through the eyes of a woman who has lived through something unimaginable. This is not an easy book, and it doesn't pretend to be one. From the very beginning, Indian Country makes it clear that this story will be raw, intense, and deeply emotional. It follows an Indian woman living in the United States who survives a brutal act of violence. What unfolds afterward is not just about recovery but about memory, guilt, identity, and the long shadow trauma casts over every part of life. As we spend time with the protagonist, we begin to understand her inner world, fractured, guarded, and painfully alert. She is constantly negotiating between who she was before the incident and who she has become after. Her thoughts move in fragments, often circling back to the same moments, the same fears, the same questions. And that repetition feels intentional because trauma rarely moves in straight lines. One of the most striking aspects of this book is how Shobha Rao writes pain without sensationalizing it. The violence is not used for shock value. Instead, the focus stays on the aftermath, the silence, the isolation, the way the body remembers even when the mind wants to forget. There are moments where the protagonist feels disconnected from her own physical presence, and those moments are written with haunting clarity. The people around her play an important role too. Her husband, who struggles to understand the depth of what she is going through, represents the gap between witnessing pain and living inside it. Friends and acquaintances often mean well, but their words sometimes feel hollow or insufficient. These interactions quietly highlight how lonely trauma can be, even when you're surrounded by people. What makes Indian Country especially compelling is how it layers personal trauma with larger questions of identity. The protagonist is not just a survivor, she is also an Indian woman navigating life in a foreign country. Issues of race, immigration, belonging, and visibility surface naturally through her experiences. The title itself carries weight, suggesting not only geography but the idea of living in spaces that are never entirely safe or welcoming. There are moments in this book that are deeply unsettling, but there are also moments of resilience. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, stubborn will to keep going. The kind that shows up in small decisions, getting out of bed, going to work, choosing to speak, choosing to stay silent. Shobha Rao captures this with restraint and empathy, allowing the reader to feel the exhaustion and strength coexisting within the same person. From a writing perspective, the prose is sharp, controlled, and emotionally precise. The pacing is deliberate, sometimes slow, sometimes abrupt, mirroring the way traumatic memories surface without warning. This is a character driven novel, and everything structure, language, rhythm serves the protagonist's psychological state. That said, this book is not for everyone. It deals with sexual violence and trauma in a direct way, and readers need to be emotionally prepared for that. If you're looking for comfort reading or escapism, this is not the right pick. But if you are interested in literature that confronts difficult truths and gives voice to experiences often pushed into silence, Indian Country is a book worth reading. What this book ultimately tells us is that survival is not a single moment, it's a continuous, exhausting process. Healing doesn't look the same for everyone, and strength doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, strength is simply continuing to exist in a world that has already taken too much. Indian Country leaves you with a heavy silence, the kind that lingers long after the last page. It doesn't offer neat resolutions, but it offers honesty. And sometimes, that honesty is what matters most. Please support the channel, like, share, and subscribe. READO Bharat brings you thoughtful reviews and meaningful books by Indian authors every week.